Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. As we embark on this journey of discovery and understanding, allow me to pose a question. Have you ever wondered why sometimes, against all reason, you make decisions you regret later? This is where we begin our fascinating exploration of the law of irrationality. This intriguing premise underpins the first chapter of Robert Greene's seminal work, The Laws of Human Nature. Central to this principle is the assertion that we, as humans, are not as rational as we'd like to think. Regardless of our best intentions and the unwavering belief in our logical prowess, our actions and decisions are largely governed by a force that often eludes our control: our emotions. Our brains, complex and enigmatic as they are, devote a significant portion of their capacity to processing emotions. These emotions, whether we're consciously aware of them or not, profoundly influence our thoughts, our decisions, and subsequently our actions. Here we are introduced to the concept of the emotional self, a part of us that can sometimes become our own worst enemy. It's this emotional self that can lead us astray, causing us to act in ways that are against our own interests or to misjudge situations and people. But why does this happen? Why do even the most rational among us succumb to emotional impulses? Greene dives into the mechanisms of these emotional responses, explaining how they can cloud our judgment and lead us to behave irrationally. However, do not despair. There's a silver lining to this seemingly grim reality. Greene suggests that by cultivating self-awareness and honing our critical thinking skills, we can counteract this natural tendency towards irrationality. By recognizing and understanding our emotional impulses, we can learn to control them, enabling us to make more reasoned decisions. This chapter serves as a doorway to the broader theme of understanding and mastering the forces that shape human nature. It underscores the importance of introspection and emotional intelligence in navigating the intricate maze of human behavior. So, let's delve into the intriguing world of our emotional self and see how it can sometimes lead us astray. Welcome to Psych Insight, where we examine all things through the lens of psychology. Please like, subscribe, and share. Also, I wonder about your opinion and experience, so feel free to share your opinion in the comments section. Now let's set sail on our journey. Imagine yourself as a ship sailing on the sea of life with two captains on board. One captain is the rational self, the voice of reason that navigates with a compass and a map, carefully charting the course. The other captain is the emotional self, a spontaneous and passionate leader who often takes the helm, guided by the wind and the stars. The emotional self is the part of us that experiences feelings and emotions. It's the one that thrills at sight of a sunset or feels the sting of a friend's betrayal. It's the captain that sails us into the storm of anger or the calm waters of contentment, sometimes without regard for the plotted course. This emotional self can be a powerful force. When it takes control, it can lead us to act in ways that the rational self may not understand or agree with. It can drive us to make decisions based on gut feelings, emotional reactions, or deeply ingrained biases, rather than on logical reasoning or factual evidence. Take, for instance, the concept of emotional biases. These are the feelings and perceptions that influence our decisions and judgments, often without our conscious awareness. They're like the undercurrents and whirlpools that can suddenly pull our ship off course, even when the rational captain is at the helm. Consider the confirmation bias, one of the most common emotional biases. This is the tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs or values, and to dismiss or ignore information that challenges them. It's like the emotional captain on following a familiar star, even when the rational captain points out that it's leading us astray. Or think about the negativity bias, the inclination to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. It's as if the emotional captain is constantly on the lookout for storm clouds, even on a clear and sunny day. These emotional biases can cloud our judgment and lead us to make irrational decisions. They can cause us to misinterpret situations, misjudge people, and act against our own best interests. But they're not all bad. They can also inspire creativity, foster empathy, and drive us to take risks that can lead to great rewards. The key is to recognize the power of the emotional self and to learn how to navigate its currents and whirlpools. To do this, we need to cultivate self-awareness and critical thinking skills. We need to learn to listen to the emotional captain, but also to question and challenge its decisions. We need to learn to balance the emotional and rational selves, to let them work together as co-captains of our ship. As we can see, The emotional self is a powerful force that can steer us off course if left unchecked. But with self-awareness and critical thinking, we can learn to harness its power and use it to navigate the complex sea of life. You might be wondering how emotions can have such a profound influence on our actions and decisions. To understand this, let's delve into the fascinating world of neuroscience. Our brain, a complex organ with billions of neurons, devotes a significant portion to processing emotions. Structures like the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex are all involved in this intricate dance of emotion. Emotions are not just fleeting feelings, they shape our thoughts and actions in profound ways. Think of a time when you were brimming with joy. Didn't it make the world seem brighter and full of possibilities? Or recall a moment of intense anger. Could you think clearly, or were your thoughts clouded by the raging storm within? Emotions can guide our behavior, often without us even realizing it. For instance, fear can make us avoid certain situations, even if they pose no real threat. Love can make us act selflessly, putting the needs of others before our own. But these emotional impulses can also lead us astray, causing us to act irrationally. Consider the classic tale of Romeo and Juliet. Their intense love for each other, despite their family's feud, led them to make decisions that ultimately resulted in their tragic end. Their emotions clouded their judgment, causing them to act in ways that were against their self-interest. Emotions can also affect our perceptions and judgments of others. Ever met someone for the first time and instantly disliked them without knowing why? That's your emotions at play, forming snap judgments based on subtle cues. But it's not all doom and gloom. Emotions can also push us to achieve great things. The thrill of victory, the fear of failure, the joy of helping others. These emotions can motivate us to push beyond our limits and reach new heights. It's clear that our emotions play a critical role in our decision-making process, often leading us to act in ways that may not align with our rational self-interest. But by understanding and managing our emotions, we can navigate the stormy seas of life with greater wisdom and grace. Let's take a journey back in time and see how the law of irrationality has played out in history. Consider the story of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man of extraordinary intellect and strategic prowess. Yet, in the waning years of his rule, his decisions became increasingly irrational. Why? His emotions got the best of him. His ambition and pride clouded his judgment, leading him to launch a disastrous campaign against Russia, resulting in the loss of more than 500,000 lives and ultimately his own downfall. This historical anecdote serves as a stark reminder of the power of emotions to override even the most rational minds. Let's turn to another example, the infamous financial crisis of 2008. It was a time when seasoned economists and financial experts, people trained to make rational decisions, succumbed to the intoxicating allure of easy money. They ignored clear warning signs driven by greed, and the result was a global economic meltdown. It's a chilling testament to how unchecked emotions can lead to catastrophic outcomes on a grand scale. But it's not just historical figures or high-stakes situations that are susceptible to the law of irrationality. Every day, in mundane situations, we too can fall prey to our emotions. Ever snapped at a loved one after a stressful day at work? Or made a spontaneous purchase that you later regretted? These are instances when our emotional selves take the driver's seat, steering us away from the path of rationality. Psychology offers us insights into why this happens. Our brains are wired to prioritize emotional responses. It's a survival mechanism, rooted in our evolutionary history. When faced with a threat, our ancestors didn't have the luxury of time to weigh the pros and cons. They had to react, and react quickly, driven by fear or anger. While we no longer face the same threats, this emotional wiring persists, often leading us to irrational behavior. Take the phenomenon of cognitive biases, for instance. These are systematic errors in thinking that affect the decisions and judgments we make. One such bias is the confirmation bias, where we favor information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs and ignore evidence that contradicts them. It's an emotional response, aimed at protecting our ego and maintaining our worldview, but it often stands in the way of rational decision-making. Another psychological insight is the role of the unconscious mind. Much of our emotional processing happens below the level of conscious awareness. This means that our emotions can influence our decisions and actions without us even realizing it, making it all the more important to cultivate self-awareness and critical thinking skills. These examples show us that no one is immune to the influence of emotions, no matter how rational they may seem. Now that we understand the power of our emotions, how can we keep them in check? The key lies in two interconnected abilities: self-awareness and critical thinking. Both of these skills form the foundation for understanding and controlling our emotional impulses. Let's begin with self-awareness. It's the ability to observe and understand our own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. It's like holding a mirror up to our minds, reflecting our inner workings back to us. This doesn't mean we'll always like what we see, but it does mean we're better equipped to recognize our emotional impulses and understand their origins. For example, you might notice a surge of irritation when you're stuck in traffic. If you're self-aware, you might realize that your annoyance isn't just about the delay. Maybe it's also about feeling out of control or about broader stressors in your life. By understanding this, you can manage your reaction more effectively, rather than simply lashing out or stewing in your frustration. Next, let's consider critical thinking. This is the ability to analyze information objectively and make reasoned judgments. It involves questioning assumptions, weighing evidence, and thinking through the potential consequences of different actions. It's about not just reacting, but reflecting. So, if we return to our traffic example, a critical thinker might ask, is my irritation helping me get to my destination faster? What's the actual impact of this delay? Are there better ways I could respond? By asking these questions, you can disrupt the automatic emotional response and choose a more rational course of action. Now, you may be thinking, that sounds great, but it's easier said than done. And you'd be right. Cultivating self-awareness and critical thinking takes time. It's not about eliminating emotions. They are, after all, a fundamental part of our humanity. Instead, it's about understanding them, so they don't control us. Think of it this way: our emotions are like a powerful river. Left unchecked, they can sweep us away, causing us to act in ways we later regret. But with self-awareness, we can recognize the current. And with critical thinking, we can build a sturdy raft, allowing us to navigate the river more effectively. So how can we cultivate these skills? It starts with mindfulness. This means paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and actions in the present moment, without judgment. It also involves self-reflection, asking ourselves why we think and feel the way we do. And it requires curiosity and openness, a willingness to question our own beliefs and assumptions. By understanding our emotional self and cultivating self-awareness and critical thinking, we can navigate the sea of life with more confidence and control. We become not just passengers on the journey, but skilled sailors, capable of steering our own course. And that, ultimately, is the power of understanding and mastering our own human nature. So what have we learned today about the law of irrationality and our emotional self? We've delved into the depths of Chapter 1 of Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature, where we learned about the law of irrationality. Despite our steadfast belief in our own rationality, we realize that our actions and decisions are often steered by unconscious emotional impulses. We've discovered how our brain, with a significant portion dedicated to processing emotions, profoundly influences our thoughts and actions. We've explored the concept of the emotional self and how it can play tricks on us, making us act against our own interests or misread situations and people. We've seen through historical anecdotes and psychological insights that even the most rational individuals can fall prey to emotional biases. We've learned how these emotional responses can cloud our judgment and lead us to act irrationally. But it's not all doom and gloom. We've also learned that we can counteract this natural tendency. How? By cultivating self-awareness and critical thinking skills. Recognizing and understanding our emotional impulses allows us to control them and make more reasoned decisions. This chapter has been an enlightening introduction to the broader theme of understanding and mastering the forces that shape human nature. It has underscored the importance of introspection and emotional intelligence in navigating the intricate maze of human behavior. So as we wrap up our journey through Chapter 1, let's remember the key message. The law of irrationality is a reminder that we, as humans, are driven by emotions more than we'd like to admit. But with self-awareness and critical thinking, we can ensure our emotional self doesn't lead us astray. Remember, mastering our emotions is not about suppressing them, but about understanding them. By doing so, we can harness their power and use them to our advantage, rather than letting them lead us astray.